Hey guys, welcome back to Back Pocket Game Reviews, and welcome to the first ever Back Pocket movie review. This is going to be your spoiler-free version of this movie review. Obviously, there's going to be one with spoilers since I'm having to tell you that. It'll be very clear in the title, and obviously with me audibly telling you which one is which. So spoiler-free, here we go. So, Star Wars is a huge franchise to me, personally. It's really the first thing to ever get me into my nerddom, we'll say. It's one of the first real geeky things that I ever started to really get into. I've seen these movies from when I was a child. I got to see episodes 4, 5, and 6 remastered in theaters both times. That's before they put... There's two different remasters of 4, 5, and 6, by the way. And I've also seen 1, 2, and 3 as they released in theaters. And I've been taking my son to see episodes 7 and 8 as they've come out as well. His first movie was actually episode 7 that he ever got to see in a theater. And this one's the first one he ever got to see day of release in a theater. And it's a very exciting moment because Star Wars is one of those films that's able to, or series, that's able to really transcend generations. I mean, there were people in there that were 60 years old in there to go see it, and people in there as young as my son who are in there to go see that movie. And my son's 7. So it's one of those things that is very enjoyable to get to see how it's able to bridge that gap between generations. With that being said, obviously, all of the series have their flaws that people like to point out, and even episode 7 had those. A lot of what people said was it followed the story arc of kind of A New Hope did, which it has to. There's no real way for it to break away from that because it is character introduction. Which is what episode 4 also had to do, is character introduction. Now, granted, there are some pieces of the story that are drastically similar to 4, but they're introducing to you new characters while still being able to play on your nostalgia. In case you're not aware, that's also one of the paths to the dark side. You know, fear leads to hate, hate leads to anger, anger leads to nostalgia, and nostalgia leads to the dark side. Yeah. So, I will say this. This is going to be really hard to dance around without giving any spoilers, but we're going to do it. We are going to pull this off. So, they do a wonderful job at developing all of the different characters that you are going to see. Obviously, you kind of already have an idea of the role of like a Princess Leia or a Luke. However, they're going to give you more of an insight into what their feelings and emotions happen to be at this point in time in the franchise. They develop Rey a lot more, and they develop Finn more. You're going to see more of their character traits come out, and a lot more of what's going on emotionally inside of them. None of it's ever going to feel bland or dull or slow to you. They do a very good job at pacing this and making you feel interested and giving you action while still giving you developmental pieces for these characters. And that's got to be kind of tricky to do because character development isn't always necessarily the most interesting or entertaining thing to have to really work through. But they pull it off, and they pull it off substantially well. I would actually tell you that I like this one much better than I did The Force Awakens, which I didn't think I would be sitting here telling you that today. But just like Shadows of the Empire, this is the developmental one, and they do a very good job developing these characters. You don't quite get the big bombshell that you got in Shadows of the Empire. There's no Luke, I am your father. That doesn't go down. There are going to be revelations that are going to be shocking to you, but none were ever quite as shocking as Luke, I am your father. If you've never looked into that, there's a huge story. Most people didn't even know it except for James Earl Jones. He's like the only person who knew other than George Lucas when that movie released. But they do a beautiful job with the CGI and the practical effects. In episode 7, that was another thing they were praised for, was blending practical effects and CGI. Obviously, there have been bad CGI movies, Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls being one of the most notable, done by LucasArts. Bad CGI isn't necessarily where my brain is able to go, hey, that's CGI, because if I see a hologram on the screen and I know you're projecting a hologram, I know it's CGI doing that hologram. You didn't actually invent a hologram to film it, nor do I think that would be easy to capture with a camera. So I know mentally it is CGI. The issue that you have is when I can blatantly see it and go, wow, that is some bad computer graphics right there. For those of you who don't understand what that is. But you don't have that. There's never a point where I was like, man, they could have done a better job on whatever type of effect they were currently going for. And there are some beautiful effects in this. They're stunning. Stunning would be the best word for the effects of this one. Music-wise, obviously music is a huge part of a movie, not just the score. The score is very important because it does set a lot of the tone. It does tell you a lot more of what's going on in the story. Some more thrilling music can make something feel more intense. Something that's slower paced can kind of tell you a deeper story to what's going on there. And they do a very good job with the musical pacing as well throughout this, and still keeping true to the Star Wars orchestra style of soundtrack. They also do a fantastic job on the sound effects. There are going to be some that you're just... The effect itself, like the graphical effect, couldn't have done it well enough without the sound effect. And that's the beautiful thing to a movie, is there's so many people that have to come together to really make it work. There's even going to be one graphical effect where you're just sitting there and there is no real sound effect, and you're like, holy God, did that just happen? You'll know what I'm talking about after you see it. I swear to you. Second you see it, you'll know what I'm talking about. So I do feel that everything fit the Star Wars universe, which is very hard, I would imagine, to do, because A, it's not George Lucas, and B, you're trying to set a different tone to these movies specifically, because the First Order is not the Empire. While being very similar, you still have stormtroopers, Star Destroyers, all these different things that tell you, hey, they're the Empire. They do enough stuff to set them apart, whether it be the weapons, like that crazy swinging impact thing that the stormtroopers have, or even some of the newer weapons which are going to be introduced in this. There are a couple, and you may be a little shocked by some of them. But they do a very good job at making sure it all feels like it should be in the Star Wars universe. Now, that shouldn't be too hard, seeing as that it is sci-fi, but there are certain things you could do where people would just go, no, that doesn't feel like Star Wars. But again, they do a very, very solid job tying it all in while still making it stand out as their own and differentiating the First Order from what is the Imperial Empire. I would say that anyone who is a longtime Star Wars fan will probably absolutely love this movie. My son thoroughly enjoyed it. He was ecstatic during this movie. He thinks it's like one of the coolest movies he has ever seen. And I would probably tell you this is one of my favorite Star Wars movies ever. And that's a tall set of shoes to fill there. we'll eventually talk about what is my favorite Star Wars movie. I do plan on giving you a little more insight into what movies I like. But there's just so much that they do in this movie to feed you fan service and still maintain a lot of the Star Wars universe. And there's going to be a lot of pieces of things that they're going to dive into that you hear about more in the EU, the extended universe, than what you hear of in the movies. And some of that's going to get brought up. You are going to see a lot of the internal conflict a lot of these characters are having. All in all, the movie is fantastic. I would tell any of you to go see it. If you're not a Star Wars fan, I have no idea how that ever happened, but you're wrong. Just blatantly wrong. You should go see it, get into Star Wars, enjoy the whole saga as it stands. It's one of the best sci-fi tales probably ever told. It is a space opera. By the way, if you've never seen the movie Fanboys, you should go see it. It's another, just rent it, buy it digitally. It's a parody Star Wars movie. It's funny, very funny. But I think you're gonna absolutely love this movie. I mean, the entirety of the movie is amazing. There's not a single part of where I was sitting there saying, oh, this is filler. This was just put in to take up some time. The entire 2.5 hours of this movie feel important. Like, extremely important to the story they are telling. And I can't see anyone disliking it. So, unless you absolutely hate Star Wars. But again, I don't know what is wrong with you. Guys, by the way, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. This might make me want to do more movie reviews and maybe even work on the system that I use for reviewing them. I really appreciate it. Also, if you're new here to the channel, don't forget to click that subscribe button. Join the community, enjoy the videos, stick around. Obviously, I'm very interactive in the comments, and become part of the community if you enjoy them, or you can just test the waters. It's like a public pool membership. You can pay for the day, which is free, by the way. This is a free pool membership. Or stick around long term and get a season pass. But guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you all soon. I'll have plenty more content coming for you.